Okay, can you hear me now, folks? Let's just check. Excellent. So it was just no harp then, by the sounds of it. Is that correct? Okay, looks like there might be a glitch with the harp. I have a feeling that's because I uploaded some data from my old machine today to the new machine, and I suspect what's happened is the location of the harp track has moved. So we'll have to manage without the harp tonight. So the good thing is you can hear me. So sorry about that. I'll sort that for the next stream. It's just a minor thing, but it would be a bit of a faff to try and do it live. So okay, I'm just going to say hello to a few folk I can see. I'll just have a quick whiz down. So hello to Dee, Shunyam, Asha, who else have I seen? Elizabeth, Lynn, Ashleisha, Heather Houston, Gina, and I think there's some others who probably haven't said hello as well. So hello to you as well. Whether you're watching live or watching on the replay or on catch up. So good. Hi to everybody. Oh, hi to Lewis as well. So yeah, just to confirm, those just coming on stream, we won't have the harp tonight. It's due to an error in the file location. I'm sure that's what it is. But anyway, I'm sure we'll manage just fine. So tonight's stream, as I'm sure you are all aware, is focused on being a mirror to truth. Being a mirror to truth. And as part of that, I'm also going to look at the subject of forgiveness, because I know that that's something that people can find tricky. And when we understand the mirror to truth part, the whole forgiveness thing becomes a much clearer picture for us. So welcome. Yeah, so being a mirror to truth, there's actually a post on the website that speaks to this. If you look in the blog section and put in the search area, being a mirror to truth. But I'm going to go through that and perhaps add some more that's perhaps not covered on that post. And I've just saying hello to Sandy, who's also just come online. So the opening line of that one says something like this: being a mirror to truth is the greatest gift we can offer. And the reason it says that is really the absolute truth of who we are is that same truth in everyone else. There is no difference between absolute truth in one and another. For those of you who are watching the stream last week, we looked at, on the very first slide, that absolute essence, that absolute source, and that is the essence of who we all are. And for anybody who hasn't seen that, that's live stream 19 and this one's 20. So this mirroring, when I'm talking about mirroring truth, that's what I'm talking about, that absolute essence, that absolute source. of who we really are. And yet we can see and experience in the world so much suffering, which is a reflection of ego, not truth. So that, it comes down to, why does this happen? Why does this happen? What is at the root cause of that? And how do we actually mirror truth? Those are the kind of three questions. Why does it happen? What is the root cause? Really, those are one and the same question, those two things. And the reason is really very simple. It comes down to who we believe and think we are. Who we believe and think we are. You might remember, in fact, I might even, from last week, for those of you who were on the stream, once I'd got to the bit of the phenomena or experience of life, one of the central things in those three spheres I put in there was egoic beliefs. And the fundamental belief that blocks self-realization is the belief that you are not the absolute essence, the absolute source, or the infinite silence, as I call it. This single belief that you are not that means that you are believing in something less than the absolute truth of who you are. And this is creating your experience of life. Belief combined with thought, you're going to create experience that's going to involve suffering. So really, it's this fundamental case of mistaken identity. Fundamental case of mistaken identity, that you are not the absolute, that you are not the infinite silence, and that you are something less than that, which is this person with this body, these stories, these experiences. When your trust and belief is placed in that, then suffering not only in you is inevitable, but if others are in that same place, and that's where most of the world is, then actually what we end up doing is mirroring each other's beliefs, each other's egos, and conflict is inevitable within and without. So it's really this that is at the root of not only personal suffering but collective suffering, when we're, my belief is better than your belief. My belief's a higher belief, a better belief, a different belief. When ego is absolutely fixated on this, then conflict is inevitable. And the thing is, it doesn't actually have to be like this. But that is the essence of why there's suffering in the first place. And all beliefs are really subsets of that one fundamentally flawed belief that you are not the realized self, the infinite silence, the absolute source. All others, if you like, are just subsets of that. They're just different manifestations, different interpretations, different angles on this one case of mistaken identity. So I trust that's making sense so far. So this actually makes the invitation to self-realization fundamentally simple, because one, we are already the absolute, and we're simply believing that we're not that. However, it appears complicated to ego mind to drop that belief, that identity, because it is so heavily invested in it. Whether you've been in this body 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, there's a degree of investment in a story, in a belief system that's not actually true. And the idea of letting that go is very, very frightening to ego. You know, its greatest fear is its demise. Its greatest fear is its demise. So ego is forever wanting to hang on and hang on to its belief system, to the thoughts that continue to reinforce that. But here's an insight that this actually came from a conversation with my wife. I won't go into the detail of it, but the insight that emerged from the silence for her, connected with what I'm saying here, is that when we go with thoughts and then believe in our thoughts, then we create suffering. And the insight or the message that came to her in a meditative space was, thought cannot heal your pain. Presence will transform it. Let me say that again. Thought cannot heal your pain. Presence will transform it. And this presence is the infinite silence itself. So we won't get to realization, to inner peace, the peace that passeth all understanding, from the thought space. It's too low a vibration. One doesn't think one's way to realization. One is the realized self, and the dropping of all that is not that, the realization flowers. It's as simple as this, but as I say, to ego, this is one huge challenge. It appears to be a challenge. And it's only ultimately ego that can be challenged. The infinite, the word challenge means nothing to it. So herein lies the reason why there's so much mirroring of ego going on in the world. So let's move on now a little bit, just a sort of kind of a practical application or example of that. And I do cover this in the blog, having sort of set that scene. So let's say there's a couple of people, you and somebody else, and you're quite happily walking down the street. All is well with the world. And then something happens, maybe an event, a situation, or somebody says something, and suddenly you're triggered by that. You've been upset, you're angry, whatever emotion starts to emerge. The person with you is unmoved by it in this example. So you're angry, they're still okay. The same event happened. What does this tell us? Was it the other person? Was it the event? Was it the situation that was the cause of your now upsetness, your anger, your whatever? Or was it something within you? Now bear in mind, our friend here is unmoved by the situation. So what this shows you is, irrespective of the event, situation or other, actually there's an energy, there's a vibration in you that has been triggered by whatever this event or situation was, whether it came from a person or just a happening or whatever. It doesn't really matter. One person unmoved, other person now upset. It must be within you. Now, it's important to say that this doesn't condone the blatant actions of others. You know, they can go around doing whatever they want to upset people, or even murder people or things like that. No, this is not condoning that, but what it's saying is that actually The triggers are all things we're holding onto within. Remember, our friend here is unmoved by the situation, is untouched. And if, let's say, another person was involved in that situation, they may be completely unaware of the action or thing that they may have done that's now resulted in you being upset. They may be blissfully unaware of that. And yet, now there's all this energy raging, one has been triggered. So what this does is puts the kind of responsibility in terms of where does the power lie actually firmly back in our control. It puts it back in your control, because what that's saying is if there's some energy emerging there, some trigger, some anger or whatever, is that there's something here in this that you've been triggered on that would serve you to let go of. It doesn't mean run away from it. It doesn't mean fight it. It doesn't mean beat the other person up or blame the situation. No, what it means is watch this, pay attention to this. It's an invitation to release that which is no longer serving you. It's an invitation to release that which is no longer serving you. And how do you do that? Back to thought cannot heal your pain. Presence will transform it. You come back to the presence. You notice that this energy, this trigger is occurring. You allow it to be felt in the body. But you bring your attention back to the silence and simply watch neutrally this happening. And by not buying into it, by simply silently witnessing and not trusting the anger or whatever it happens to be, the upsetness, as your truth, actually that transforms it. Just that power of that witnessing, trusting only in the silence itself. And this, for those of you watching, is what we covered in great depth in live stream 11, transmuting fear into love. The whole process of silently witnessing. Thought cannot heal your pain. Presence will transform it. Live stream 11 explains that in great depth. And you don't have to be sat at home in your nice comfy chair, meditative space to do that. You can be whilst you're doing the dishes, out on the high street or whatever. That presence is powerful enough to transform anything. But with regular meditation, regular engagement with that, and the awareness is explained in great detail of that silent witnessing in live stream 11. This is what's going to transform it for you. This. So that's one example. What's Dee saying here? I use this all the time now and it works so well where I am. So simple and so effective. I am delighted to hear that for you, Dee, because it really is quite simple. And once it becomes your experience, then the process, the experience of it becomes much simpler and actually a lot faster as well. So that's one scenario. The other scenario, which may not be so obvious to you, but I want to cover, it's important to cover this as well because there's an important understanding in it, is let's say now you're already feeling a bit down, a bit sort of low, energy's low, something like that. New situation here. And something now happens to uplift you. Maybe something a person did, or an event, a situation, and suddenly all is well. Now, was it the event? Again, our friend may be unmoved by it. Or was it you? Again, the clue is if it's you that's changed and everybody else is unmoved by it, then a decision, a choice has actually been made within you. You're the one that's responsible. It wasn't the situation. Ultimately, it wasn't the event. Now, the difference here, let me use a very practical example between exactly D, you have allowed it. Happiness at a situation and true joy. There's a difference between happiness at events and situations and true joy. So let's use an example. Your favourite sports team wins. You're a bit down before they win, and you're happy. Next time they lose and you're upset. So you've allowed the event to control your mood. Very simple example. And you can live your life that way, consciously or unconsciously, with all these events and experiences unfolding, being triggered, not triggered, happy, down, up, down, low, down. I'll be happy when, sort of placing it in the future. This kind of happiness is inevitably going to be a roller coaster ride, because life is full of motion in the form and things are constantly changing. And if one's happiness is rooted in events, relationships, situations, places, then suffering is inevitable, because all these are constantly changing. All these are constantly changing. So if one is basing one's happiness on this relationship, this event, this situation, this place, then suffering is inevitable. True joy, on the other hand, isn't like that. It's not event-based. It's actually the natural perfume of the silence, when one's attention is rested in and as the silence, and the knowingness is there, the constant knowingness that you are that, then experientially in the form, there's a subtle joy, a peace, a grace, a gratitude that is ever present. That's not event-based. No worry, Tracy, you can always play on catch-up or watch the beginning later. So true joy is the perfume of the silence. Its sisters and brothers are love, grace, peace, gratitude. Whenever one of these is present, they are all present, and that it's not event-based. And this is what is meant by the realization of the self. There's the release or the liberation from suffering. Suffering is all ultimately event-based, situation-based, time-based, space-based. That is the nature of suffering. Liberation is stepping beyond that, transcending that, into the permanent essence that is the silence. So I don't pretend to know a lot about Buddhism. For me, it was a very direct thing. But in Buddhism, they talk about permanence and impermanence a lot. And the reason they talk about that a lot in Buddhism, if one's identity, belief system is rooted in that which is impermanent, which is space, time bound, events bound, relationship bound, then suffering is inevitable. If one's openness is to the realization that one is the eternal essence, the infinite silence, the true self, then liberation is inevitable. Just going to look at a couple of comments here from D. The key is not allowing your circumstances to affect you. Remember, the true self helps me to stay centered in a more joyful place, which is growing and deepening the more I melt into meditation. Yeah, exactly that, D. I used to try this before I had experience of the silence and the true self, and it didn't work so well when I was coming from the headspace. Exactly that, D. You will not, as I was saying only a few minutes ago, you won't think your way to self-realization. And herein, interestingly, is a flaw in, you hear a lot about positive thinking. The thing is, in duality consciousness, if there's a positive thought, on the other side of it is the equal and opposite negative thought. So thinking one's way to happiness, to realization, is not possible. Thinking one's way. So thought cannot heal your pain. Presence will transform it. Thought cannot heal your pain. Presence will transform it. Now D's adding that it should be positive feeling, and actually I say that's not quite right, accurate there, D, because if you root it in feeling and become attached to the feeling, then actually you're creating suffering again. So you're creating suffering again. This is why the word that was emerged from the silence, you may have heard me refer to it before as insation. I spoke about it last weekend. Insation, the inner sensationless sensation, the knowingness. The knowingness. That, as it's percolating through the form, then there may be a felt sense of that. There may be a felt sense of that, but one remains the witness even to that. One doesn't get attached to it. And this is key to the liberation. So I'm just going to look at, there's a few important comments here. It should be, can you please talk about physical suffering, pain in body? Yes, I will do that, Asha. No, it's not emotional feeling, it's the insation feeling I was referring to. I'm glad you've clarified that, D. Does being in joy override physical pain too? So I'll come to those questions at the moment, Asha. So the key is the permanence, and the permanence is the infinite itself, and the reacquaintance, the remembrance of the realization of that. And so the true mirroring of truth is the awareness that you are that, always, no matter what is unfolding in front of you. Now, this doesn't mean that one doesn't see all the suffering in the world and all the rest of it. Actually, what this creates in the form, is a compelling, the words the silence gave for this was a compelling compassion, because the knowing is there that not only is the silence you, but actually everybody else is. And although people may be coming from the space of ego, they're not judged for it. There's the knowing that they are the silence too. There's the knowing that they are the silence too. So there's no judgment about it. One simply is that. You know that they are that. So this is the true mirroring. There's the acknowledgement that actually everyone and everything is that permanent essence, no matter what. It doesn't condone blatant egoic choices. Everybody actually is at choice. Do I go with the ego or do I go with the heart? That's the fundamental choice. Do I go with the realization I am that, or do I go with ego thinking, ego beliefs? A great divergence there. So, if people are constantly choosing blatant choices that are creating not only suffering for them, but great suffering in others, then we're not condoning that. But they are still the silence. Just going to look down the comments here. So yeah, it should be positive. Yeah, that's fine. So okay, so Asha was asking about physical pain and does joy override physical pain too. There's an important sort of awareness here. So we're going to make a distinction between pain and suffering for the purposes of this stream. The purposes of this stream, we're going to make a distinction. So pain, if I was to knock my hand on this table right now, deliberately, then it would clearly be quite painful. And that's a physical pain. And there's certainly plenty, there's certain things that happen in a body. If you fall over, it's going to be painful, and so forth. Where the suffering bit comes in, and where the issue that we're talking about in terms of liberation is the removal of the overlay of egoic thinking and belief in that. The overlay of that onto pain can actually make the physical pain more challenging. When that overlay is released, the physical pain will often reduce, if not completely disappear. Depends on the circumstances and what the situation is, because obviously there's all sorts of conditions and so forth that people are experiencing. But it's actually, medical studies have found this. If people can find ways to do that, then actually the physical pains they're experiencing are much less. And it's the removal, what's causing that ultimately from a spiritual standpoint is the dropping of the beliefs and the thoughts about this that's creating and indeed actually accentuating the physical pain. And it's true to say a lot of actual physical pain, physical ailments, are the result of belief systems and stresses and not following the truth of you. The classic example, I've shared with you already that, worked with, is actually Lynn's example with the cancer. It was the release of a belief and a set of circumstances there relating to something deep within the past that actually, in her case, released all the suffering and pain associated and the actual release of the cancer itself. That's how deep it can go. That's how deep it can go. Just going to try and catch up on the comments here just to make sure. I observed. Whoa. So just, I hope that's covered your question, Asha. I'm just looking at these comments here. I observe the pain from the observer and be okay with that and allow the silence to be. Yes. Like, and then Asha says, like the yoga and the Buddha, so infinite silence, Satchitananda bliss, would manifest physical perfection if I can sustain and master it. I understand the need to practice and do it. So the thing to understand in relation to what you said there, Asha, is that you are it already, and it's the acceptance that you are that and the dropping the belief that you are not that is going to allow it to flower. It's not something that one strives towards. It's one that it is that which you already are. I hope that clarifies it for you. So one doesn't make self-realization a goal. One accepts that one is that. You get there by realizing you are already there. You get there by realizing you are already there. So what's decent? You still feel it sometimes, but you're no longer connected to it somehow, which eases it. Correct. You don't mind that you have the pain, correct, and sometimes it goes away completely. Also, yes, a great summary, Dee. Thank you for that. And this is where, as we were talking about on last week's stream, about all experiences are ultimately pointings back to the realization. When you look deep under the surface, you realize that by witnessing all experience, the one who is the witness, the underlay, the deepest level is who you really are. And then, as I say, the suffering has dropped. What's daunting? Hi, Philip. Yes, the overlay. This has been coming up a lot in awareness recently. The overlay was not seen through for a long time. It appeared to be invisible. It only came into awareness once the silence began to anchor. Yeah, so what happened there for you, Dawn, was that basically, going back to where I was at the beginning, at the earliest stages of that, the identification with the thought and beliefs around that was the prevalent factor. And so therefore it's not being seen because one is looking through the lens of ego. As one opens to the possibility and then touches, so to speak, starts to merge with the silence, then the seeing becomes from a deeper place. And hence the stream where we talked about the nature of the infinite silence meditation. I can't remember what stream that was now. That seeing is coming from the deepest place. You remember that fiber optic lamp right at the very source. So the difference between the two, one was looking through a cloudy lens of ego, or looking from the space, the source that is the silence. That's the difference between the two situations. The silence is like a sort of underlay. Yeah, you could say that. It actually pervades everything and it's actually here now. But if you think and believe it's not here now, then it will be your experience. Simples, as these meerkat adverts say on the UK television, meaning simple. Truth is simple, ego is complicated. Truth is simple, ego is complicated. So now, having looked at these kind of hypothetical scenarios and what's going on, and realizing that every experience is pointing us back to this essence. The mirroring of truth, which is the title of this stream, becomes a very simple awareness that one is that and is always that. And when one's attention is anchored in and as that, then the mirroring of truth, this is the gift that the self, the true self, is offering unto itself to be experienced. And this is why it's the great gift I was talking about earlier, the greatest gift. By mirroring, by accepting and embracing the truth within oneself, automatically that invitation, shall we say, is being made to all others, because all are this. The greatest service of being in the body is the realization of the self. Nothing else comes close. The realization of the self, the greatest gift from the self unto the self. And it's not a personal thing, you know, it's not like I'm special because whatever. Actually, we're all that. We're all that. So now, the other thing I said I would talk about in connection with this was forgiveness. Now, looking at forgiveness, and in connection with everything that we've just been sharing, the kind of headline really is, if I am that, you are that, we are all the silence, then actually this is all being what is there ultimately to forgive. If one judges another, one is judging the self. If one is criticizing another, one is criticizing the self. If one is not forgiving another, then one is not forgiving oneself. And again, important to stress, we're not condoning that which is obviously causing harm and suffering in others. However, bringing ourselves back to the point of power, in the examples we were talking about, realizing that actually it's us that's in control of how it's being manifested, how it's being felt in the body vehicle, then if forgiveness, let's say a situation has happened, is withheld, the other who may have been involved in that situation may be completely unaware of the impact of their actions. Completely unaware. Doesn't mean that they were nice actions or loving actions, but they still may be completely unaware. If one is withholding forgiveness, who is suffering? It must be you that is suffering, because you're holding on to a judgment about actually an event that was one in the past, but also is actually another manifestation of you. Again, important to stress, we're not condoning blatant actions of violence and things like this. But if you're holding on, not forgiving, then actually you're creating suffering in yourself, because as I say, the apparent other may be completely oblivious. So for your own benefit, let go. Let go. Witness it from the silence, live stream 11. Allow the energy of that release to emerge. Not only will you feel lighter and peace from that forgiveness, but actually you will see the apparent other, whom it was you weren't forgiving, in a different light. You will see that they too actually possibly completely unconsciously in their situation, are also suffering. And when you're forgiving, you're mirroring truth. You're mirroring truth. If you want a very powerful example, and I can't relate the whole story now, I can't remember it in detail, but if you want to have a look at a very powerful example of that, I think it's the story of Corrie ten Boom, who was in the concentration camps. I think that's her name. Look that one up and read her own personal account of that. Very powerful example of forgiveness. Very powerful example. The other thing about forgiveness is, even if there's no others involved and there's something that, let's say, an action that you have taken that you feel you can't, like people say this, I'll never forgive myself for this. Whoa, what is that? That is a huge belief. Thank you for that, Dawn. Corrie ten Boom's book is called The Hiding Place. Thank you. Yeah. So that experience I'm referring to will be in that book, but you can Google it as well. It's when she meets the SS officer at the church where she's been preaching forgiveness, or the place where she's been preaching forgiveness. So you're not forgiving yourself for some action. Therein is a belief that you are not the realized self. Hi, Leotilda. Therein is a belief that you are not the realized self. You're not allowing yourself to release that. And so you're holding on to this energy. And that is going to create suffering in you. Physical, mental, emotional suffering. It actually can even make you ill. Physically ill. What you have to look at here is actually, yes, that action or whatever it was, I'm not forgiving myself, came from this place, and actually you're not that. The ego mind. The ego mind. One embraces that one is already the silence, the absolute. Witnesses this apparent energy of lack of forgiveness in oneself. Again, live stream 11. Lets that go. And as that, the regrets, the lack of forgiveness drop. Peace is there. Peace is there. And then you'll see the situation in a whole new light. And whatever action it was that you weren't forgiving yourself for, yes, it doesn't mean it didn't happen. But what it means is it now seen that it was coming from a case of mistaken identity. A false belief about who you thought you were and what was necessary in that situation. And so one moves on from it, one moves beyond it, one transcends it. And it turns out all our experiences in life have brought us to this point, and we're still here. So from the perspective of the absolute, they're all serving a higher purpose. And it doesn't have to involve massive suffering. One can choose the path of heart, the path of ego in each and every moment. And the more one chooses heart and makes it your conscious choice each and every moment, the more likelihood that the realization is going to flower. Always choose the highest and greatest good. And the highest and greatest good is the path of the heart, the path of realization. Make this your top priority. your highest priority. Nothing else comes close. Let all go that is not that, and the realization is inevitable. It's that simple. And yet important if we've had traumatic experiences, challenges and so forth, be a little bit gentle with ourselves and allow these things to flow through and emerge and release and witness, release and witness, witness and release, witness and release. Step by step, egoic identification drops. Egoic identification drops. And then one day, when the time is ripe, the realization flowers. And you will realize that actually you've always been this. You just thought you were something else. You just thought you were something else, and you believed it enough to create the experience that you were that something else. Drop the belief. I sometimes like to say, just to reinforce this point, truth is unbelievable. Truth is unbelievable. It's beyond belief even. In that it does not require belief. One simply is it. A belief is something outside of you. Something you haven't experienced. Hence, truth is unbelievable. It's beyond belief. It simply is, and you are that. So that's why I use that slightly humorous way of articulating it or expressing it to make it stand out for you. Truth is unbelievable in that it does not require belief. It does not require belief. You simply are it. That's all. That's what you're here to realize. That's the mirroring of truth. The surrendering, the embracing, the allowing of that to flower in you, through you, as you, but it's then non-personal. Non-personal. Exactly. 2009. Welcome to the stream. I'm just going to have a quick flick down just to see if I've missed any questions or comments. Dawn. Yeah, yes, forgiveness has been a profound experience. It was and is connected to the trauma release processless process. When I was in forgiven, there is the awareness of connection to us all. Yeah, good, Dawn. So I think I've picked up on the questions. A lot of emotion has come up, intense sadness. Is that right now, Dawn? And if it is, then simply witness that. I'll just say something about sadness, because as one is witnessing, I've done this with many people when stuff has come up to be released. Various emotional phases may happen. One of the ones that appears quite commonly, not always, witness that dawn, witness that sadness. And just hear carefully now what I'm going to say. One of the ones that comes up quite commonly is sadness. And it can actually be a huge amount of sadness at times. Now, the thing to understand about sadness is that it's a letting go energy. It's a letting go energy. So when that emerges, when I'm with somebody and witnessing somebody, I'll often say, wow, this is really good. It may seem like a strange thing for me to say, but if you witness that sadness, allow the sadness to be there, let it be felt fully. Know that you are not the sadness. As the sadness is witnessed, it too will be transmuted, will be transformed from within. And on the other side of the sadness, you will find there is peace. So witness dawn, allow it to be there, trust totally in the silence, and that this sadness is here for a very good reason. It's here to be transformed. If anybody's read, I've referred to the book of Mere Dad. It's a novel, spiritual novel by Mikhail Naimi. He talks in there in one of the chapters about the great melancholy. And the great melancholy, in short, is the release of the sadness before the realization. There's a great melancholy or sadness, a letting go of all of the identification with ego. It's a natural part that can be experienced in the form. This letting go of all this energy that's been put into this small identity or idea or belief of who you have been. This sadness can be very, very, very strong in the body, but again, the solution is to witness purely from the silence. Can I just check in these comments here just to make sure I've picked up everything. Sometimes you have to understand if your energy or emotions. So sometimes you have to understand if it's your energy emotion or someone else's energy. Let me say something about that. People talk a lot about this empathic stuff and various other things. Only you are in control of what you feel. Only you. Don't give your power away. Trust that you are the absolute, the silence, the essence. Simply witness whatever's here. If somebody's holding a vibration that you're then resonating with at a low level, then that vibration must be in you. But it's not your ultimate truth. You are the silence. You are the infinite source. Do not give your power away. This is not an effective strategy. We've all had situations where you can maybe walk into, say, into nature, and the vibration there, out there is lovely, it's pure. And suddenly you become aware of that same energy in yourself. Was it the nature that did that? Or was it actually already here? It was already here. Then there may be another situation where you walk into a room where there's been a big argument taking place and you can sense this energy. Now here you have a moment of choice. Even though that energy, that can be sensed, do you go with that? Do you allow that to vibrate with something in you? Or do you trust that you are the silence and actually transform the energy in the room by your presence? That one is the higher choice. Do not let the event or the situation impact upon you. Retain the power. But it does bring for further inspect. Yes, I find that, and then I feel peace. So yeah, what that then is an invitation to release. Good. I'm glad you see that, Ashley. I'm glad you see that. I hope you're getting on okay, Dawn. Let the crying happen. Let the body do what it needs to do. But keep on trusting in the knowing that you are the silence. I know that you know what I mean, because I know from our experiences where you've been at the events, this has been touched deeply enough. And if some tears need to happen, then this is okay. It's part of the body's release mechanism. It's part of the body's release mechanism. So it could be completely okay with that. Just trust you are the silence. The body will need to do what it needs to do. It's a denser vehicle and it needs to catch up. It's being jet washed. I like to call this process like being jet washed from the inside. I saw a friend refer to it in a slightly different way yesterday. I forget how she put it now. Yeah, as one awakens, they talk about the lotus flower blossoming or petling is a metaphor for self-realization. It grows up through murky waters. As the awakening happens, the murkiness gets disturbed and it gets transmuted. This is what's happening. So you're doing fine, Dawn. Just witness, just allow the process to happen. I know you know what I mean because we've done that together. So all will be well. Okay, so that pretty much covers the kind of thing the things I was wanting to cover about being the mirror to truth. Actually, the power has always been within and as you. And in embracing that, this is going to make all of the difference. The power of your awareness is indeed infinite. The power of your awareness is infinite. I'm glad to hear that, Dawn. I'm glad to hear that. So this is the mirroring. This is the mirroring. Thoughts cannot heal your pain. Presence will transform it. And when you realize and accept and embrace that you are the presence, that is the infinite silence, then you are mirroring truth. Then you are creating an invitation. You're embracing the invitation for yourself, creating an invitation for the apparent others to join you in this place of truth. To join you in this place of truth, because they are that too. So rather than being dragged down by another's suffering, one creates the invitation for them to join you where you are, and they are at choice. They may run a mile, or they may come and join you. Two extremes, but they are at choice. For you, the highest path, the highest truth, is to remain in the truth that you are. And in this way, you are mirroring truth. In this way, forgiveness becomes easy because you see that you are not separate from anyone or anything. And you can forgive yourself and forgive others, not hold on to judgment. You know, truth has no judgment. Listen to that one carefully. Truth has no judgment. Truth has no judgment. Judgment requires separation. There is no separation. So do not judge yourself, do not judge others. There are no others. This way we mirror truth, this way we embrace that we are the infinite, the absolute, the realized self. So simple. Okay, so yes, I can attest to that, but what about standing up for oneself? One needs to, yes, this is a useful question, Ashley Shah. So it doesn't mean you become something that everybody can walk over. Standing in one's truth is standing in one's truth. It's done lovingly, peacefully, gratefully, with wisdom and silence. But if others are taking actions, proposing actions, then one needs to stand firmly in that space, not in a judgmental way, but one can say, okay, well, I see that you see this differently. However, the truth of the matter for me is this. It's not done in judgment, it's not done in argumentative way, it's just done in a space of knowing. If you're trying to do this from a space of being triggered, it won't be effective. One must be still, one must be calm, one must be centered. Just going to look at the rest of the comments here. So hopefully that answers the first part of that, Ashley. I feel myself less triggered. I state when standing my truth and make it such a statement and say blessings and best wishes. Yeah. What is important in this is to come to total clarity on your truth in any given situation. That may be possible in the moment. If it's not possible in the moment, walk away. Don't get involved in an argument. Walk away, come to clarity, get to the space of truth, and then when the situation presents itself, state your truth lovingly, compassionately, without judgment. Without judgment. The clarity will only come from the stillness. It won't come from a triggered place. Exactly that, the muddy waters clear. So one can stand in one's truth. And in doing so, it's not a judgmental thing. It's actually the most loving thing. People may not agree with your truth, your highest truth. In fact, this can happen quite a bit because the highest truth challenges people's belief systems. It challenges people's belief systems. Now, it's not your job to change their belief systems. You can accept them for where they are, but the presence of being in the truth, living the truth, this creates an invitation, and they are then at choice as to whether to follow that invitation or to go their own way and suffer, because that is what will happen if they're still anchored in belief systems that are false. Indeed, D, not everybody sees you are coming from a place of non-judgment, totally. And that's because the vast majority of us are coming from a place of ego, and so we assume everybody else is coming from that place. And this is why I said earlier, a few moments ago, you need to be crystal clear on what is truth. And if you can't do it in that moment, then go away, step away, come to clarity, and then speak truth. Don't try it to do from a triggered place. It won't work. So yes, being in truth, stating truth, actually can bring up all sorts of stuff in others, and you'll have all experienced that. But this is why it's so important for you to be anchored in crystal clarity about what is your highest truth. And then it's a choice, a compassionate and loving choice that you're making, but others, or the apparent others, have a choice, and you can allow them that choice, whichever way they want to go. So people are entitled. Yeah, indeed. Good point. Yeah, you can accept where they are, and that's fine. Distorted perceptions, yes. Yeah, that's all fine, Ashleisha. But in the silence, there is only the now moment. So those who appear to have chosen to identify, but they are in reality the silence, yes, they are always that, Dawn. They are always that. However, their experience right now is not likely to be that in the situation you're describing. And that's okay. There's no judgment about it. Just stand in your own truth. And then the other, or the apparent other, has a choice. This is not something that you have control over. Remain in and as the silence, the awareness, the compassion, the compelling compassion for all is then present. People are likely to throw judgments at you. The more that you are anchored in truth, this can happen. For those that are open to it, like the people on the stream, this is like sort of manna from heaven. But for some, this could be very, very challenging to hear. And that's okay. It's perfectly okay. People are where they need to be, and things will unfold for them in a different way. So I'm just looking at the questions, the good questions on there, just in a different place. Exactly. I used to get disappointed in this and felt misunderstood in the past. I just have an inner smile about it now. Wonderful, Dee. Wonderful. Exactly that. Don't try to create an expectation about how it should be in the perceived other. And the more you're not attached to the outcome and just accepting what is, actually it's easier then, because you're not creating an energy where you're trying to say, agree with me. You're basically saying, I know I am this, I know you are that. However, we're not seeing eye to eye on this. There's an inner smile, there's an inner acceptance. What this does is take away any ego from the situation. Ego loves to have something to react against. And if it has nothing to react against, then it's harder for it to keep going. If you put sails in the wind of ego, then you'll get a fight. You'll get a storm. If you take the sail away, you take the reaction away, then ego will lose its energy and it will just drop. Yes, as if I once had a time machine and fast forwarded they are, yeah. Good stuff. I just and support everyone, but I'm in my own truth, not getting involved in stating whose view is better. I know mine. Good. Good. The inner smile is a great example. This inner smile, I agree with that comment, Dawn, and great observation, Dee. That inner smile is a beautiful space to be, because what that inner smile is the recognition that actually they are truth as well. May not be seeing it right now, but they are that. Okay, so we've been going for longer than I anticipated, actually, but it's an important subject. Any more questions or observations or experiences anybody wants to share? Yes, exactly that, Dee. It's like your heart is smiling. Totally, can completely, utterly agree with that. It is indeed that. So, if there's nothing else anybody's desperate to share right now or ask, I'm going to suggest we have a meditation now and then come back after that to see if there's anything else. So excellent. I'm glad to hear that, Ashleisha. So let's have a meditation for a little while. For those of you who are late on the stream, the harp track isn't working because of an adjustment I made on the computer earlier today. So unfortunately, we're not going to have harp for this one. I'll sort it for the next stream. I didn't realize it had affected it. So let's do the meditation. So let's just close our eyes. Yes, there is a singing bowl, so I will mark the end of the meditation with the singing bowl. So just closing your eyes, bringing your attention to your body. And as your attention now focuses on all of your body, be open from your heart to the experience of spheres of light. Which is the same as the pure, universal I am presence. Just pure I am. Pure beingness. Just allowing your attention to rest on this state, non-personal I am. And as your attention rests on this state, I am, know that it can do so only because it too is seen or sensed, witnessed from the deeper essence that is infinite. Silence. So simply allow your attention now to merge with and as the silence. Just dissolving into and as this silence. Nothing else matters now. Just silence. Infinite silence. All else dissolves into and as this silence. Nothing else matters, just this silence, this knowing. Here, now. Nothing remains. But this. Pure, infinite, silence. The true you is this. Always this. Never not this. All I truly know is silence. timeless, formless, eternal, essence. Here it is. Simply is. Requires nothing, asks nothing, is nothing, no thing, simply is. totally effortless. Pure presence. Silence. Primordial peace. So in a moment or two, I will ring the singing bowl 3 times. But just keep your attention rested in and as the silence. And keeping your attention rested in and as the silence, noticing the chair you're sitting on, or maybe something you are lying on, gently opening your eyes, but keeping the attention rested as the silence. Good. Namaste. So we have a I'm glad to hear that, Ashleisha. So Lynn's just put a question on, which I'll come to now, since we haven't got the harp track working. And it's saying, question please, the body's torso always becomes quite warm during the meditation. What? Why? Thank you. So actually, many sensations, physical sensations, are possible during the meditation. Heat or warmth certainly is a very common one, but also cold is as well. And what it's a sign of is a physiological recognition of touching silence, the silence. And if this is like a gentle warmth, then that's a sort of physical manifestation, a sort of one is feeling the presence of that in the physical domain, and can often be felt as a pleasant warmth. If it gets very, very hot, like, really hot, kind of blowing a gasket type hot, what this is you'll usually notice that at this point, when it's extremely hot, then there's some resistance, there's some energy that's in the body vehicle that's needing to be released, and it's almost being vibrated out of your body. It's like an electrical circuit with a resistor in it. It can get very hot, and the higher the resistance, the hotter it gets. But also, the reverse can be true. One can get very cold, and this is an indication of some older or dense energy that's being let go of usually. So again, witness this. Now, if one's feeling cold, then this is a sign that there's an older energy that's wanting to be released. So just allow that to be there. Witness that in the same way that you would witness the intense heat. But a good solution for the feeling cold one is to keep witnessing and maybe have a bath, a hot bath. It will help your body release that energy more quickly. Maybe with some special salts in or something like that. But that one is quite common. Feeling cold is an older, denser energy that's going, is a way to describe it. The gentle warmth, though, is much more likely just to be an acceptance in the body of the presence of the silence, and it just being made manifest as a physical sensation, a loving warmth, maybe. So hopefully that answers your question. Just going to look down. There's so many comments coming through here. Where do we need to be? Okay, so kids are knocked out. Namaste. Yeah, full energy through your body. You need it most. Dawn. Wow, lots more tears. All is well, but there was a lot of pain that came up. But with the pain, there was so much love. Good. I kept seeing Corey's face. The author wrote that book, Philip. So this is something that you needed to see Dawn, and it was useful that I mentioned that tonight. And when the pain is seen with the love, it will melt away. And so I'm sure that's all shifting for you as things go on. Ashley's saying chakras are clearing. That's how I describe it. That's certainly one element of it as well. There are 7 major chakras, but there are many. Good, and thank you for that, Dawn. Many chakras in the body, and certainly as one releases stuff, then yes, the chakras are becoming clearer. Tracy again, I was almost unconscious, never experienced such a beautiful peace. God bless Philip. I'm delighted to hear that for you, Tracy, and I would like you to know that this is because of your openness to that which is already here. And my role is simply of pointing, if you like, or inviting you to realize that. And so the fact that you have experienced that beautiful peace and, so we say, unconsciousness of the body vehicle, this is an opening to that truth. So my invitation is for you is to keep going, keep trusting that. I am delighted that that's been your experience. So yeah, I've answered your bit, I think, hopefully, Heather. If you want to ask anything more about the coolness, let me know. Dawn had tears too. The pain felt like a hollowing out of the heart, but with the hollowing was a filling up with an enormous amount of loving energy. It is beautiful. Excellent, Dawn. I think I may have related this story once before, but it bears repetition many times. There's an Icelandic friend who has realized as well, and we happened to meet. This was one of the many reasons the silence wanted me to go to Iceland. Fantastic to meet Jon. And he created a group which he had the name in Icelandic, and I don't know the correct Icelandic pronunciation, but it would be Ein Tom Feeling or Filing or something like that. And I asked him what the translation was, and he thought I translated it from the Icelandic, and I thought he'd translated it from the Icelandic. But anyway, no matter what, the solution we came to was 1 empty fullness. 1 empty fullness. And what you're describing, Dawn, the hollowing out, is the emptying out of all that which you are not. The dropping of the identification, the beliefs, the ego, in other words. So the vast emptiness. And into that emptiness is the fullness of grace and love and peace that fills that. So hence the name of the group, 1 empty fullness. Beautiful. So that's exactly what you're describing there. Now feeling peace. Excellent, Heather. And again, I say the same to you. I say the same to you as Tracy. It's because of your openness to what is already here. You're welcome, Gina. Dawn saying a big yes. Oops. Sorry, hang on a minute. Sorry, I'm laughing. Wait, so I'm picking out you one by one. I got the giggles during the meditation also, Ashley, as well as a deep peace. Good, yeah. It doesn't always have to be serious. Excuse me. Sorry, just need a drink for a moment, folks. Gratitude always to Philip, addict Anonymous. Yeah, I know when the energy's so high, sometimes the body doesn't want to sleep, and it's just a case of witnessing that. Plus, it wouldn't be a session without Dawn and her thoughts. Yes, Dawn does ask some great questions. So that's fantastic. And some great contributions from various quarters tonight, though. I have to say, Dee made some fantastic contributions, I remember. But thank you for all of you for being here. You know, the energy of the group helps create a more complete experience for us. What's D saying? I often get the sense of a vast empty fullness and connection to all. Perfect, D. That's exactly what we've just been talking about. So emotional, feeling so much for this soul family, feeling blessed. I'm delighted to hear that. Emptying out, says Dawn, filling in. So strange. I've been seeing an image of that all day long, so we needed to mention the name of that group. The reference to the silence. The one empty fullness. Sandy's saying thank you. That was beautiful. Excellent. And again, say the same to you, Sandy. It's your openness that's crucial. Dawn saying thank you to you all, as is Lynn. There was another question from Lee, who couldn't be on the stream, and I think it's really probably been answered, but I'll just summarize it. Basically, she's saying, what does it mean? Is everyone a mirror to our truth? Well, in the absolute sense, yes. Only the silence is that, though, Lee. However, when you're reacting, as you were asking in your question, then this is mirroring of ego. So the question really has been answered by the main part of the stream, but if you have any more questions about it, do come back to me. So the true mirroring of truth is the silence itself, the recognition, the acceptance, the embracing, the realization that you are that, and that everyone else is that too. That's the true mirroring. The rest, let's say, is a mirroring of ego. What's Ashleisha saying? This gratitude, soul family, and namaste. Namaste. This is a beautiful group and so easy to share here. I completely agree with that, D. I completely agree with that. And whether you're watching live or watching on the replay, all are welcome. Just being open to your truth, the flowering of that. And I know that there are quite a few people who couldn't make it tonight, and it's been quite long, so I think a few people probably maybe had to finish early, but thank you all for coming. I haven't got the harp to finish on, unfortunately, because of this slight glitch when I was uploading the rest of the old data from my machine. So I can't play you the harp to finish, unfortunately, but you can just imagine or just embrace the fact that the harp is within your heart. The harp is within your heart. So unless there's any other questions, the only thing I was going to say, yes, that's true, Ashleisha. I was going to say was going to have a 2-week gap now. Just feel the need for a kind of bit of space. The silence does that, and that's good. So I'll be taking that opportunity, and I will propose another stream on the 21st of December, which, as I'm sure you know, is the winter solstice. Just happens to be a Friday, so that's good. Winter solstice, 21st of December, and I was feeling like I just, rather than talking a lot on that one, I was feeling to just focus principally on the infinite silence meditation on that stream. Obviously, if there are any burning questions, we can look at it. But a winter solstice infinite silence meditation, 21st of December, 2000 UK time, if that sounds good for everybody. I will notify on Facebook as usual, but yeah, so that's 2 weeks from now, and that's probably going to be the last one of 2018, although we'll see how we get on. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you so much for being open to your highest truth. It is a joy to share with you, to an open and beautiful group. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for all your sharings. It's been some really great contributions. I hope I have said hello to everybody. I know there was a few people that came on. I think Sandy, and was it somebody called Wello or Paul? I'm not sure. If I've missed you, apologies, but you're here in my heart, in the silence of my heart, always. Have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful weekend. See you in 2 weeks. Namaste. I see you. So I'll close the stream now, folks. Thank you very much.